Hello, viewers. Welcome to the second episode of Safari Mania podcast. And in this episode, today we are talking about health and wellness tourism. Health tourism, also known as wellness tourism, is a rapidly growing sector in the global tourism industry as well as regional tourism sector. Now, it comprises of several services and activities, all aimed at improving individuals' health and well-being. Locally, we are accustomed to only two types of tourism, or two types of tourism, which is wildlife tourism predominantly, and sun and beach tourism. And today, we want to talk more about health and wellness tourism. And with me in the studio, I have a medical doctor and also a tour guide who is a licensed tour guide and a practicing one who is well versed in manners, health, and also wellness. So, welcome. Introduce yourself and tell us more about health and also wellness tourism.
Okay. Thank you very much, Felix. My name's Bosire. My background is in pharmacy, and I've specialized in traditional and complementary medicine. And as you have correctly mentioned, yes, I'm a guide. And this is an area that I also remain very passionate about.
Yeah.
And actually, as we think about travel and tourism from our perspective as Africans,
Yes.
I think this is probably one of the things that has not been captured very strongly. I think history has it that we built the industry of tourism based around the interests that were granted to us previous to our independence.
Yeah.
And I think if we reflect on this, a lot of those who came to this part of the world were fascinated by the diversity and the beauty of our life. And even more importantly, they were impressed by the scenic beauty of our country.
Oh, that's why wildlife tourism is
Yes,
a very common type of tourism.
Yes, so I think it's not a surprise that to a big extent, the momentum of tourism continued to run on the basis of safari, and which was largely to view our unique and beautiful wildlife.
Yes.
And maybe we haven't even reflected on that too deeply, because again, if we look at where all this happens, it's largely where the Ma culture is.
Yes.
So again, if we think a little differently from what we've done in the past, it means that we are actually celebrating the Ma culture, because the Ma culture espouses the protection of wildlife in their behavior around food, mannerism around livestock, and their coexistence with wildlife.
Yes.
So I think as we have now grown over the years, we've realized that we have not picked traction for wildlife safari amongst our citizens. Largely, the African population has not consumed this aspect of tourism very strongly. So maybe it's time that we began to look at things that tell us where the interests of our people are. So looking at the issue of health and wellness.
Yes.
So I think it would be also nice for us to probably start by saying, what is it that we envision as health and wellness from the perspective of our people? I think some stories help us to think through.
Yeah.
This may not answer all the questions, may not necessarily be the most correct way to do it, but I sometimes say that an odd event sometimes helps you to learn something. And one of the events that I reflect on is there was one time when a Tanzanian herbalist came up with a cure for a number of diseases.
Yes.
And this herbalist in Tanzania was not carrying out something new. He had not invented a herbal therapy.
Yeah.
In fact, he was using a plant that is well known and is known to be medicinal. However, the publicity and the attraction that surrounded the prominence, or rather the activity of him treating people, captured public attention in a very peculiar way.
I remember as a tour guide,
Yes.
we made like several trips to Loliondo
Yes.
to go and
Yes.
see Mzebabu.
Yes. So I think
Yeah.
I think if we think about it,
Yeah.
in hindsight, if you had an opportunity to ask people,
Yes.
if you stood at the entry and exit of that event,
Yes.
and you asked the people who were consuming that service, what do they think?
Yes.
You will realize that there were people who traveled even from outside Kenya. People even came from diaspora to come and take their relatives to go and seek care. So it tells you the amount of investment that was done for that one event, the amount of movement, human movement, and the extent to which people felt satisfied that they'd done something meaningful for themselves. It tells you how high on the scale of importance health and wellness is for our people. And if then I could say this, that now that we have the opportunity to reflect,
Yes.
we could ask ourselves the question again: have we really understood what the needs of our population are
Yes.
in terms of travel and tourism? And so that's why I think we here at East Africa, I think one of the things that we are reflecting on is trying to pick out what is now the issues that really are at the heart of our interest for us as people, Africans. Why do Africans travel? What is it that they envisage would be the description of travel and tourism to them? And
Now, just
yes.
to cut you short a little bit, you brought a very good example of Loliondo.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
you consider that health tourism or medical tourism?
So in this world of the vocabularies,
Yes.
there's always the risk that people may be caught up in between the definition of very specific terms.
Yes.
But I think the term that medical tourism is considered more like when people travel to India for healthcare specialists,
Special
facility,
surgeries.
facility, and then people have called it medical tourism.
Yes.
But I think it's more. I think it's well, it could be considered tourism, but really I think people from Africa don't travel for tourism. I think they don't travel because that is tourism. The people who travel for that as tourism are largely from the Europe,
Yes.
from European and American continent. Why? Because for them, they already have those facilities, but they want to go for things which are special or done in a special way. And they already have those facilities and they have them. So they want to divert from where they are. But I think for us, people travel for necessity. So I think if we consider that largely to be the angle from which medical tourism is promoted, then we would say that for this, the reason that people went to Loliondo is largely because this rhymed with the philosophy and thinking of Africans. First, it was something to do with the traditional cure.
Yes.
And secondly, it was being done by an African himself.
Yes.
And the third thing is that they felt there was credence given to that service because the government of Tanzania started building roads, provides security, and even continued to provide publicity for it.
Yes.
So there was more or less what we call authentication.
Yes.
People felt they could trust the information that was coming around Loliondo.
Yeah.
But I think, in my view, regardless as to what negativity people may have had around it,
Yes.
I think the positive side of it is that we showed that there could be potential for an African attraction that is from within our culture and something different from wildlife.
Yes.
And in fact, that medication, whatever he was giving, the herbal concoction that he was giving, or let me say it was a tea or something, that he was boiling and then serving people. 1 cup. And charging very little. So people were spending about, I can't remember, I don't know if you can remember the figures. How much was it a person
No,
would pay?
actually, it was.
Yes, per person in a trip. How much were you charging? If you
Oh,
can
for
remember?
the transport.
Yeah, for the
transportation.
transport alone.
Transportation, we were charging about $300 per day,
Yes,
and the least you could do is
about 6 people, I think. About.
no 6 people,
Yes,
and then the least number of days you could do is 3. So
yes,
3 to 4.
yes,
We make it 4 days.
yes.
Yeah. So we charge about
$1,200.
$200.
And those are for about 6 or 8 people
Yes.
in a vehicle.
Yes.
So just do the maths.
Yes.
If you take $1,200, 8 people, it's approximately about $150. I think they're about, It's about $150 per person. isn't it? And these were not the wealthiest people in our country.
Yes.
These were the ordinary citizens spending $150 to go and drink a cup which they believed provided wellness.
Yes.
So I think by all manner of definitions,
Yes.
people were willing to spend a lot more than they probably would do for anything else
Yes.
to get wellness. And I think that, in my view, and probably maybe the view of others, is that if people knew that by traveling to a place that they got good health,
Yeah.
they got a cure for a prevailing condition that was not managed by conventional medicine,
Yes.
I think our people would spend just about anything to do it. So I think the opportunity for tourism then, in our case, would be that there's a chance for us to begin looking away from wildlife,
Yes.
looking away from the sand and beach. And if we began to look at these unique offerings,
Yes.
like what Loliondo was offering, there are many Loliondo-like opportunities, even within Kenya, that have not been explored. In fact, like, without promoting specific products or specific regions, I am aware
Yes.
of a place you go to at the south of Lake Turkana,
Yeah.
where there are two springs. In one spring, if you drink the water, you will have an experience of diarrhea, what we call detox.
Yes.
You will purge and remove all the dirt from your stomach, and it will be so strong to the extent that if you don't stop it, you'll feel like you're losing all the fluid in your body.
Yeah.
But it's a very strong force of removing the dirt from your gut. Then, next to it is a spring. If you drink the water, it stops the effect of the fast.
Wow.
And now, the amazing thing about it is
Yeah.
that it is natural,
Yes.
it is abundant,
Yes.
and then the good thing about it is that after you have gone through that experience, your body begins to peel off what we call exfoliation.
Yes.
And you have a rejuvenation of your skin, you have a rejuvenation of your body, and even those who are feeling lethargic, weak,
Yeah.
after that you feel energetic, you have an increase in appetite. And if people learned there was such a service available,
Yeah.
they would do anything to go and get it. Then, not even exception,
Yes.
don't have to go very far, even here at Magadi.
Yes.
If you
Magadi,
go to
I've been
Magadi,
Magadi
yes,
sometimes.
if you go to Magadi, just around the Lake Magadi,
Yeah.
there are some hot springs.
Yes.
In those hot springs, we have fish. Fish that survive in the hot water.
Yes.
An amazing spectacle.
Yeah.
Yes. And after seeing the fish and probably admiring the beauty of nature that can survive in hot water,
Yeah.
the waters are salty and beautiful to sit in. If you have a patient with skin diseases and they go and sit in that salty water, it's soothing. And this is something that we have not championed.
Yeah.
And again, I don't even have to go that far. I even want to come closer.
Yes.
If you just travel to Ngong Hills
Yes. Ngong Hills. Yes.
and you take a trip down on the other side of Ngong Hills, you meet the Ma people.
Yes.
That's, I think, the nearest spot you can get the Ma people.
Yeah.
But they are as far as Samburu.
Yeah.
But just get to this region on the western side of Ngong Hills,
Yeah.
an area called Sekeri, around there. And the Ma people in this region, all the way to Narok, have a tradition. This tradition is done once a year. And in this tradition, our people there go out with a bull.
Yeah.
And they go and slaughter that bull in a natural bush, and they protect the natural bushes with their natural trees, because those bushes provide three things.
Yeah.
One, those trees provide the herbs, which they use as medicine.
Yeah.
Number two, they provide the shade. And then number three, they provide the coolness of the environment, so that livestock that are grazing within those areas are provided with coolness. So this culture of having once in a year
Yes.
a retreat by the Wazes. The Wazes go out, they go with a bull, they slaughter it, and they eat it while drinking their herbs for 30 days. This is not just a cultural thing for the sake of the ceremony. It has a very important health function. In fact, any patient with a chronic illness, if he goes for that experience, they will notice changes in parameters of their problem. For example, the diabetic will see a change in the sugar parameters. Hypertensive will see a change in the blood pressure. And a person having continuous joint pains will also see relief in the amount of pain that they experience.
Wow.
And this is from people that I have been with who have come for those functions. And why am I describing this? Because if Kenyans knew, or the rest of our people knew about such things, then what would happen is that this ceremony would not only be done for the Ma as part of their culture, but would become a product that can be offered to the rest of the country. And it will do very many things. Let's think about it.
Good.
One of the things that it will do, one is that because they consume meat with herbs, it means the livestock that the Maasai keep will find a very big volume of market. So it will give incentive for the Maasai to continue raising cows the way they do, and it will continue to promote their culture. Then the Maasai will find an economic incentive to continue raising more livestock because the consumption is even more. Number two, the herbs that they use for purposes of this ceremony are traditional herbs, which means that now they would have an incentive to protect all their bushes. So the natural environment that exists within the Ma environment would be promoted as protected vegetation. And people would see the value of protecting that vegetation. Why am I saying this?
Yes.
Think about this. I have known of companies that sell land. Okay? And they've been selling land in Ma culture, within the Ma area. Do you know what happens? When they are selling property, they come and clear all the bushes because they say buyers want mali safi.
Yes.
What does that mean? The people buying the land do not know the value of the vegetation.
Yeah, that's true.
And those selling the land have not known any better and have continued to promote a very destructive process of issuing or promoting land purchase by destroying the natural vegetation. But what they do not know, they have destroyed the most beautiful element that we have been provided in that area. Those herbs are beautifully medicinal. And it is very difficult to grow those plants anywhere else and achieve the same value.
That's true. Yeah.
Because those herbs need that kind of environment, the hotness, the nature of the soil, and then it balances very well with livestock farming. So what will happen if that kind of tourism is promoted? First of all, it's a form of wellness tourism.
Yes.
Two, it preserves the Ma culture. Three, it's an economic incentive for the Ma to retain and promote their culture. And then even more importantly, Kenyans who will enjoy that service not only get an opportunity to go and rest and understand the Ma culture, but they also get wellness as the benefit of participating in that tourism. So in my view, this is just an example of the untapped opportunities beyond wildlife that our people can already begin to benefit from.
Now, Dr. Bosire, there is an occasion in Kwale County. We used to take tourists for mud bathing somewhere in the mangroves. At that time, I still consider it wellness tourism, and it is a thriving form of tourism in that location. Do you think it has any medicinal value or any therapeutic value?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Actually, there's an element in the wellness, in the practice of wellness.
Yes.
That exploits the relationship between the human body and energies.
Yes.
And in that form of health practice, there are things that people do. Like, for example, amongst the Chinese, we have something called acupuncture.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the Chinese believe in the flow of energies in a certain pattern in the body.
Yeah, I've seen.
And so there's a way in which you can tap into that by punching needles into specific junctions of nerves, and it triggers a body's response to overcome a problem it's facing.
Yeah.
And so if we take that as an example of where an understanding of the inner flow of energies as an approach to healthcare, now there's also the belief that our bodies are a composition of electrical energies and other forms of energies that flow in certain ways.
Yeah.
Now, by far, the thing that is considered the most stable in terms of where energies are resting is the earth. electrical energies are resting in the earth. So what happens is that it's also been observed that if a living person or a person who's alive it immerses himself into the mud,
Yes.
the electrical flow of energy in his body and the earth around him and its conduction of electricity interacts with his body.
So does the mud composition has
Yes.
some
Yes,
chemicals in it?
so if we look at the mineral elements that make up that mud,
Yes.
basically earth,
Yes.
it could even be rock powders, could be sand.
Mm.
All these elements have all these materials have elements in them,
Yeah.
and these elements have electrical behavior. So specifically looking at the mud, that mud has two things. One, there's the powder itself, which makes up the mud. Then there's the water.
Yes.
And so when you mix this up and make the mud, and this water has salts in it. So unlike the mud you'll find, for example, around Kiambu or Nairobi or Ukambani, which is basically mud that does not have salty water, this one in along the beach is enriched with the salts of the sea.
Yeah.
So its conduction is slightly different from this other type of soils.
Oh, okay. Now I understand why,
Yes.
the mangroves or the soil
Yes.
around mangroves
Yes.
is like a good breeding ground for some specific types of fish.
So
And it's a very, very, very rich
it's very rich.
location
Some
for
species.
fish breeding.
Yes.
Now I understand.
So if you look at the materials, the interaction between the soils and the mangroves, the rotting materials from the mangroves. Remember, the rotting materials from plants are chemicals.
Yes.
So as they rot in that seawater, they interact with the minerals around them, and so it leads to a certain type of composition.
Yes.
So if you look at the mud, it has a composition of bacteria and the minerals. So actually, I was coming to mention the second element.
Yeah.
There's the soil component, then the salty water, which is the electrical conduction from the salty water. Then you have the bacterial component, what the bacteria, fungi, and all those things that are from the natural microorganisms.
Yeah.
Now, if you combine those two and put them on your body, there are two interactions that will happen. One is the electrical interaction. Then there's the second one, because our bodies are covered by a normal type of bacteria. When you put this mud on your body, there's an interaction between your bacteria and the bacteria from the mud. And a very important interaction takes place. And to us, many people take this bacteria on the skin for granted. But it is a very important component of the immune system. So when you immerse yourself in the mud, there's this exchange of bacteria between your bacteria and the bacteria from the mud.
Yeah.
What that does to your health is still not been studied fully. But we know people have claimed all sorts of health feelings and experiences just by going into the mud.
I remember Mzee Kenyatta
Yes.
used to go there. I've seen pictures of him and his
Thank
buddies,
you.
going to smear themselves in the mud.
Thank
and,
you.
thinking,
Thank you.
I think I
Thank
should also try that because
Thank
I
you.
need my skin to be smoother a little bit. Maybe
So,
I will
so-
do that.
so there's actually a scientific explanation
Yes.
for animals and for people to go and apply mud on their body and allow it to stand there for some time, because there's the electrical component, and then there's the change of what we call the normal flora of your skin. That interaction, it eventually does show up in your system.